Hey guys, and welcome back to another Gaming Memories video. Here we are taking a look at Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed, or what was otherwise known as Porsche 2000 in Europe. This was released in the year 2000 and it was actually the final Need for Speed game to actually be released on the PlayStation 1 console. This game actually got mixed reviews in games magazines, although there was a lot of people that actually liked the game, but it also kind of got different types of reviews based off the fact that the only brand of car that was in the game was just Porsche cars. Now that's not to say that it was actually a bad thing, because as you can see here in the video, it demonstrates that it goes back to showing you a lot of very popular and classic Porsches from different eras, and if you're a Porsche fan, this is actually perfect. I think that primarily due to the fact that most gamers and fans of the series were primarily used to actually having loads of different brands of cars in previous games. Like you had Lamborghini, you had Chevrolet, you had Ferrari, you had Mercedes. There was loads of different types of cars available, and I think the fact is that only having one brand, I think that kind of put a lot of people off. So it isn't considered to be the best game in this franchise, especially on PlayStation 1, especially when you look at the games that came before it. Yes, there were multiple games on the system, and the weakest primarily being and known to be the second game in the series, Need for Speed 2. But then it goes on to pretty much one of the best games in the franchise, which is Need for Speed 3 Hot Pursuit, was pretty much one of the best Need for Speed games ever made. And then Road Challenge, then after that, which is also one of the best titles in the franchise. So this title did have a lot to live up to, but I think for most gamers, they probably feel let down by the fact is that they didn't actually have all those name brands within the game as well, that they didn't have that option. And when you've actually played the game, it actually does feel slightly different to the games that came before it. It definitely has a different feel to it. The layout of the tracks is primarily a lot different. They've definitely gone for pretty much a very more realistic look. But that's not to take away from the fact that the game actually does look quite incredible, especially for this period in time. And again, this was roughly around the midway point, or towards the ending point of the PlayStation's lifespan. So developers were starting to get a lot more graphics wise and power wise out of the games. So you could definitely see that here. And having played it, it is actually quite a good game. Now, I will admit, it's not considered, like I said, to be the best game. It's not my personal favourite on the PlayStation 1. My favourite two would be Need for Speed 3 and Road Challenge, or High Stakes as was known in America. I actually thought that they were fantastic games. I played them for ages. Absolutely love those two games. But you could see what the developers were actually doing with these type of games, and you could see that because it led on to really successful titles on later consoles like the PlayStation 2 and 3 and so forth, with the likes of Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2, Most Wanted, Need for Speed Carbon, and then later on to the likes of the PS3 and even currently the PS4. So the Need for Speed franchise has been around a long time, and every iteration of the game is different. There's no denying that. But the one thing that it does actually have is it always has really good tracks and level design, and it also really does have pretty much some of the best selection of cars that were available at that time. They always had access to loads of big name brands. Now I know saying with this was being with Porsche, but that's not necessarily to say it's a bad thing, because even myself personally, like, I'm a big fan of cars and I'm a big fan of the Porsche brand, and the cars I'm driving around even here, like the Porsche 924, in this video. And then even like say some of the older cars, I love the older Porsches. I just think that they're actually really, really cool looking cars. If you're into your cars at all, you'd understand. But I think as well, what a lot of us I think had to do at the time as well, because of the mixed reviews in the game, because at that point you had the likes of the Gran Turismo series that had come out on the PlayStation, and that was pretty much classed as the standard in racing games across the entire games industry. So every game that came out after it, even regardless of whether it was a simulation game or an arcade racing game, a lot of them compared everything to Gran Turismo, which, to be honest, was quite unfair to some degree, because none of those games were ever really meant to really compare to Gran Turismo, and it left it that it got either bad reviews or people avoided it because of certain features, or it didn't compare in certain ways, which was quite a pity. And this game is actually a really good game. I will admit it's probably not the best Need for Speed, but it is actually a very good game. If you actually give yourself time to actually sit down and play it, it's actually a very enjoyable game. And like I said, the one cool thing about it that I really enjoyed is the fact is that even though you have access to Porsche cars, but there's some of the best Porsche cars ever designed and ever made actually in this game. And the game actually does look very decent. Even though it may not look as polished as other games on the PlayStation 1 around that time, but it still is a decent looking game. So you have access to a load of different tracks, and the different types of tracks you can race on, the likes of circuits. You also have like built up city kind of streets, and even in this case where you can transition from city streets to even off-road settings as well. And that was a thing in the Need for Speed games, and you can even see it on modern games as well. If you play Need for Speed games on current systems, you will also see that there is a lot of that as well. So you can pretty much see that they've kept that aesthetic a lot of the whole way through the years. But I suppose it's one of those franchises that has just grown over the years, and there are so many Need for Speed games out there, like on all consoles, and they've always tried different things. Some of them worked, some of them didn't work as well. But you can't take away from the fact that a lot of them are still very, very playable games, and they're still quite enjoyable. And if you're a fan of the franchise like I am, they're definitely worth having a go and enjoying, for sure. So you also had access to a load of different versions of cars from the Porsche brand, anything from up to the earlier Porsches way back in the early days of Porsche, even up till the modern cars up to that point in the year 2000, like the Porsche GT2 race car and so forth, and even that era's version of the Porsche 911. So you did have access to a lot of different variations of cars, and to be honest, actually playing the game and even going back to experience it again, it's amazing with the selection of cars that are available as well, that there is a car there that literally suits everybody. You'll always find something that you like. Like me personally, as much as I do like modern Porsches, I actually like the older Porsches just as much. That's why when I went back to play the game for recording this video, I just wanted to actually experience the older Porsches, because over the years I've started to enjoy the likes of the older cars a lot more, and myself being like a car enthusiast as well, and being really into cars and that as well, so this to me was really appealing, and I do enjoy that. And actually to be able to still have access to that and play those type of games is very, very enjoyable. So if you're into your classic cars, it is worth actually experiencing, just to get a feel for them, because in most cases this is as close to a lot of those classic cars that you will ever get the privilege to drive. In most cases, a lot of people will never have that privilege, so this is as good of a chance as you'll get to actually experience that. So here I'm actually driving the Porsche 356, and this is one of the earlier design Porsches, and I'll be honest, I absolutely love the design of this here. This is definitely a classic car. I just love the whole shape and style of it, and it's cool to actually see these classic cars being implemented in even these older type games as well, and it actually does look really, really good. The graphics in the game, I have to admit now, they actually are quite good. so they are for its time period and its era. Right, maybe not on the scale compared to some other games were out at the time, but they still look really, really well, and it plays really, really well. Definitely feels a wee bit different in terms of the handling mechanics compared to other games in the franchise, but every game was kind of an evolution of the previous one in the series, and this was no different. What it may have lacked in terms of certain elements, like of with different name brands and more popular cars and faster cars, it definitely made up for it in other ways. But it's all down to the preference of the player and what they want to get out of it. Now, if you're into your classic games and you're into your cars like I am, that won't really matter, because if you're a big fan of big brands like, say, Porsche and that, you'll give it a go just to actually see that and experience that for yourself. And for me personally, it is an enjoyable experience, and I'm sure that anyone that's a fan of these type of games will see that as well. Although it is your typical Need for Speed game as well, compared to other games, the handling is actually good, but it does take a little bit to get used to. So you really do have to time your braking and your turning, because you can literally hit a wall or slam into a corner very, very easily if you're not careful. But as long as you take the time to get used to the game and you get familiar with the controls, you can definitely master it before long. So it's definitely a very enjoyable experience. And even though this is the last game to be released on the PlayStation 1, it was actually a very good one. Although compared to the likes of Need for Speed 3, Hot Pursuit and High Stakes, it does leave a lot to be desired, but it's still a fantastic racing game. And if you're into just Need for Speed games at all, I highly recommend that you actually do give it a try, because it is a very enjoyable experience. It's different, but it's enjoyable. Like the other games in the series, it also had a version released on the PC as well that was quite similar too. So people across different elements and playing on different types of consoles or different avenues had the chance to experience this game outright. So it was definitely worth trying it, regardless of the format you were playing it on at the time. And plus, it's just cool to actually go back and just relive these old memories and just play these classic games, because they really are worth experiencing and playing if you haven't done so. And especially if you're into your cars. For me, I absolutely love racing games on the PlayStation 1 era, because for me personally, I think it actually really kind of stands the test of time, but it also gave a lot to the current games that you see now today. So you can definitely see that the evolution of the games over time. So it definitely is worthwhile to actually go back and relive these old games and just to see what they're like now compared to newer ones, and even just to have a bit of fun with them, because they're just as playable today as they've ever been. That's the one thing you can take away from them for sure. You'll still enjoy them regardless of how long it's been since you played them. So I highly recommend that you do check it out. So have you played Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed? If so, what are your thoughts on it? Is it your favourite game on the franchise during the PlayStation 1 era? I'd love to hear your thoughts on the game and what you thought of it. So make sure to share your stories and memories down in the comments, as I'd love to hear them. So I hope you found this video to be helpful and that you really enjoyed going back and sharing these experiences with the Need for Speed games. And if you have enjoyed it, please be sure to leave a like on the video. Also subscribe to the channel and that bell icon to be updated whenever I release future content, and also feel free to share the video. And as always, make sure to keep playing those classic games and enjoying them, and keep those gaming memories alive.